We're back. Victory Monday. Go Bills. No, we're not going to dive into football today. There was a great 4-day weekend of football and not a lot of wrestling. We had Minnesota SDSU yesterday. Minnesota looks great. I'm not doing a stock down or a stock up report this week because there wasn't that much action, but Minnesota stock up. They look great.
Yeah. You know, somebody else, the GOAT follower, right?
Yep.
He's
shout out the GOAT.
He texted me or DM'd me how great Minnesota looked. And, I said, yeah, you know, when the crystal ball comes out, I'm going to put it up today or tomorrow, but it's already done. It's been done for a few days. I just didn't want to put it up over Thanksgiving. Minnesota shot way up. I mean, based on the results, plus, of course, the addition of Gable, but they shot up way high.
Yeah, and there was some good like you said, it's not just Gable. Minnesota's looking very good. The only other thing I was going to mention from this weekend before we preview Cliff Keen is Max Briggs. You've been talking about him for months on the podcast, and Brignola goes out and upsets Julian Ramirez 9-5.
Yeah. I talked to the Lehigh staff. You know, there was a couple shows where I said, like, man, this Brignola kid, he got to freaking get in the lineup. I said, well, I don't understand why Thane Lawrence is starting and not yada, yada, yada. And mentioned on the show a couple times. And then I got, like, so frustrated. I like, literally was like, Lehigh got to start him. So I called, and they're like, nah, you got a red shirt, bro. But, you know, there's pros and cons to, like, should Lehigh run all their guns out this year, or should they space them out, or, you know, because they got Stanich in tow, and he's on red shirt too. I also think Matty Lopes could be really good at 25. I know he lost to Seymour earlier in the tournament, but I think he could be really good as well. But, you know, the question of development often gets brought up, and with a kid like Brignola, it's one of those rare cases to me where anymore you don't see late-term jumps, right? If a kid comes in, maybe he makes a jump between freshman and sophomore, but mostly they are what they are.
A lot of times when you do, it seems like it's more injuries and things. You know, we saw a late jump from Kassar. Actually, he did it in high school and college, but also a lot of times you see it's injuries. When a guy just competes and goes, yeah. I think Kassar is a good example of a development thing. 100%.
But they're rare, they're rare. You talk about, there was a lot of bad football, bro. There was a lot of bad football, like bad decisions, bad management.
Yeah, I mean the Bears with the worst of the weekend.
The Bears was crazy. Nebraska, what were they doing? And there was another one too, in like a 3 consecutive game stretch.
The Raiders. The
Raiders game was over. The Nebraska game was over. The Georgia Tech, if that guy don't fumble, it's over.
8 overtimes. Crazy. All right, so we have the Cliff Keen this weekend, and
yes, we do.
Cliff Keen is Friday and Saturday. It used to be just a good tournament, and I think you even said this in the Most Interesting Guys We're Watching article. It used to be just like a great tournament. Now it is the in-season tournament. I mean, we'll go weight by weight, but right out of the gate, you can see at 125, you got 9 out of the top 10. Like, this is the tournament, and as we go through it, you know, we'll talk about our most interesting guys and why, but man, you look from the smaller guys like Spratley, bigger guys like Ferrari, This is the outlier in their schedule where they can see the best of the best.
It's kind of odd. It's kind of odd where you get this collection of teams. I say kind of odd, but it's kind of odd anymore in Division I wrestling where they say, give us everybody. Mm-hmm. Give us whoever will come. Give us, we'll take it. We got to go to a tough tournament. For whatever reason, people don't want to do it at the Scuffle. People don't want to do it at Midlands anymore. People don't want to do it at Soldier Salute, right? They're willing to do it now in early December, but they ain't doing it any other time. Yeah. They're not even willing to do it at collegiate duels. They'll wrestle who they wrestle. Sometimes they'll sit guys during collegiate duels. I mean, I don't know the dynamics of it, and I don't know why, but for whatever reason, there's a good group of teams that say, give us all the heat right now, early December at CKLV.
Yeah, and it's not going to disappoint. So we have what you call them expected seeds that you worked on.
Yeah, I call them projected seeds. They're not official by any means now. They typically in the past have just run down Intermat's rankings. And that's how they did it. Now there will certainly be some nuance in there, and like, we're going to switch the 4 and the 5. We're going to switch, the 3 and the 4. We're going to switch the 11 and 12. But it should be relatively close.
Yeah. So, all right, well, let's go through them one by one. We'll start with 125. I'm going to pull them up. So if you're watching on YouTube or Rokfin, you can see the projected seeds along with their current ranking in Intermat, their school, and their NCAA finish last year if they went.
Yeah, starting at the top, Richie Figs. You see an asterisk next to him. I didn't call every school and I didn't call any school and ask about their availability, but Richie's obviously been out for a little bit, so asterisk next to him, returning NCAA champ, would be the 1 seed's been dinged up for a little bit, hasn't wrestled since Daktronics. Caleb Smith, the 2, and he was 3rd last year. Ramos, runner-up 2 years ago, would be the 3. Tanner Jordan, Spratley, Volk, and then you got another asterisk with Provo, he's the returning champ. Mm-hmm. But he hasn't wrestled a bout yet this year. So that's sort of interesting. Do you, I don't know. Have you talked to Nico?
I haven't talked to Nico in a bit, no.
So there were some people when they went on the road to Iowa and Iowa State, that it might be a weight thing. Now, if it's a weight thing, well, whether it's a weight or injury thing, maybe more if it's a weight thing. I don't know if you come back on a weight thing and do 2 days in a row, right? My first weigh is going to be a 2-day. I don't know if you do that. But whatever the case, Nico, returning champ, is questionable. Greg D at the 8. Apparently he's dinged up a little bit too. But look how deep this weight is. Macron had really good wins last year, and he would be the 8, 9 in that range. And Matreska's an AA, all the way down to 10. Then one of my picks for most interesting, Vince Robinson, freshman out of NC State. Cooper Flynn, now at Minnesota. I actually had that typo in there. I had it from Michigan. At the 12. Great field. You have of the top 10, the only one missing is Steve O'Pullen. You got 9 of the top 10.
And it is going to get interesting because it could only be 6 of the top 10.
Yeah.
It's a big question mark, but, right out of the Troy Spratley for me is one of the most interesting guys to watch because, we talked about it last week, like, should he have a number 1 ranking, this and that. And this is a weekend where he has a pretty favorable schedule as far as not, some of these guys like Josh Barr's got 3 of the top 4 guys or something like that coming up, or top 5. You look at a schedule for Spratley, aside from Vincent Robinson, who we might see, he won't see a top 25 guy in duels all year. So this is really a huge opportunity for Spratley to, I don't know, if Spratley wins this thing and Figs doesn't go, the case to make Spratley 1 with Figs not
For
wrestling, it's there. So
in that case, for sure, Spratley coming off, he did see Volk, but you're right, he doesn't have a whole lot of duels coming up till other than this, he doesn't face a whole lot of guys. And it's a different thing to, especially in a tournament this loaded, it's a different thing to win a duel where you have a singular focus on Jory Volk, right? And then to string together wins in a tournament back to back to back. And like Spratley last year didn't place at NCAAs, but on a match-by-match basis, you would have said he has a shot against anybody, right? And that's what I think we have here. Figs looms large as far as his availability. I do think I think that Eddie Van Treska is massively underrated. And I think that's because he tried to wrestle injured last year and he got beat and he looked bad, but and his ranking's low because of it, justifiably. But I like Eddie. You see Eddie down there at the 10 seed. I like Eddie right in the mix. I mean,
100%.
I mean, I think he's a title contender here.
Yeah, I mean, Ventreska got injured at Cliff Keen, didn't he, last year? So it's literally, I want to say, let me look it up. I think that's when he got injured last year. And now this year,
he didn't place. Eddie got beat by Dom Mendez, majored by Dom Mendez, and majored by Noah Luna.
But then he didn't wrestle again. I thought that was when he got injured.
He was already injured. He was already injured going into CKLV, and he tried, and then
got it.
He wrestled Dean Peterson and lost as well.
Yeah, but he looks good so far this year. I mean, he's 6-0. He's got a win over Cooper Flynn. So this is such a great weekend for guys to get opportunities to see the best. That, like you said, it's one thing when you have a singular focus in a dual meet, whether you have momentum from the team, whether you have all week to focus on one guy and gaming him. And this is an opportunity where when you look at a weight like 125 up and down, and the only guy on here that somebody like Spratley could see all year is Ventreska in the duel. Or Vince Robinson, maybe both of them. But
yeah. And let's talk about Vince Robinson a little bit. Down at the 11 seed, obviously his ranking is low because he's a redshirt freshman. But this will be a litmus test for him too. We'll figure out what, at least a good idea what he is. And I wrote in the article, like, this is a guy we didn't have penciled in as a starter. He might be a legit All-American contender.
Yeah, I mean, this is the guy who was 11-2 last year in his redshirt season, and now he's 11-0 this year. Like, he looks great. like you said, I mean, he's got the injury win over Dean Peterson. He was up on Dean, wasn't he, before Dean got injured? I mean, he looked pretty good, if I remember the match correctly.
He was up big. He was up big.
And he's got wins over. He's got wins over Max Gallagher, who's looked good. Diego Sotelo, who's looked decent. Yeah. So he's. This to me, I've been riding the Spratley wave. I'll continue that and go with Spratley until he proves otherwise. But I think this is going to be a dogfight. And I think some guys like Caleb Smith, it's early in the season. These guys haven't had these big signature wins and moments yet that get them talked about more and more. I think this is a weekend for somebody like Ramos or Caleb Smith to get in the conversation more. Right now, I'm going with Spratley. I think he just looks great. I think the new coaching staff at Oklahoma State has him in gear. So I'm bullish on Spratley.
I'm gonna take Matt Ramos. And I'm going to work under the supposition that Figs is out. That's no inside information. I'm just assuming he's out because he hasn't wrestled in a while. But I'm going to go Ramos. And I'll go Ramos over Spratley.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking for the final. Because let's say Figs is out, and let's just say, I don't know, if seeds hold and wrestling goes without crazy upsets, which never happens, you could see a potential Caleb Smith, Troy Spratley semi up top and Matt Ramos, Tanner Jordan on the bottom side. Again, there's no shot it's going to happen. 125 is always chaos.
I know. And this is a weight where you'll see Vantreska beat Tanner Jordan in the quarters, and then Tanner Jordan beat Vantreska for 5th and 6th or something, right? I mean,
yeah, Matt Ramos too. Like, by the way, Matt Ramos, I mean, he looks like a madman this year too. It's just he's wrestling guys who are not that great. I mean, he's 11-0 with 100% bonus. Like, Ramos is wrestling great. Again, litmus test is like the word of the weekend here because, when you go and duel Buffalo and Princeton and Chattanooga, you're not seeing guys in the top 50. So, he's pummeling unranked guys, but this will be a good weekend to see where Ramos is at as well with some of the best in the country.
Yep. So yeah, I'll go Ramos over Spratley.
All right.
But I expect good showings from Caleb Smith, who ironically to this point has struggled with weight a little bit, which is sort of crazy because he's tiny. But getting down after the season, but I think he'll be back and good. So I expect a good performance from Caleb Smith. I expect a good performance from Eddie Vantreska, and I think and I'm super interested to see how V-Rob does. V-Rob was a guy coming out. I had him number 50 on my big board, and he was one of those guys that were like, oh my God, he's uber talented, super slick. But does he, I'll just say it, does he have the toughness for Division I 7-minute grind matches that NCAA Division I is? And that was a huge question for me. I'll be honest. When kids and Joel Adams was probably the most recent one. That was elite level, but like you may be injury default, or you take a lot of timeouts, or you whirly bird, or you take a long time to get back to the middle, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to pan out. But what it does mean is that I've seen that story a lot of times, and they typically don't pan out. And so Vince Robinson, I had number 50 because I had some concerns about that. If that wasn't a concern, he probably would have been 30, 25, maybe higher, and props to him for proving that he is D1 tough. And he's a talent for sure.
All right, let's go to 133. I just pulled up the projected seeds here. This looks like some fun too.
Raggedson, 4th in the country. Frost, 7th. Tyler Knox all the way up to number 9 now, and would be the 3rd seed. McGonigal out of Virginia Tech now, former Lehigh star, is the projected 4 seed. Zeth Romney. I wrote a little bit about Josh Coderhant from Navy, who we'll see at the next weight. Zeth Romney's sort of the same kind of profile, with the exception of he had a bad NCAA tournament. Buzakis, Klebov, Unger, who was runner-up at CKLV last year at 125, would be the 8. But Justin, I put these asterisks in for potential injury status, right? They may or may not go. There's some rumors, that people are banged up. I'm not picking on Cornell, but it seems like they have a lot of asterisks, and Unger seems to be another one. Van D, who hasn't been wrestling great, the 9 seed. Strickenberger, Corey Land, who has been wrestling well, the 11. Derek Cardinal, and it should be interesting. One of them, there's a couple lineup things throughout all the weights for CKLV. One of them's Whitcraft and Hughes. Another one's Sasso and Sonny Smith, but Whitcraft, Hughes, not exactly sure who will get the nod here for Okie State, but really tough weight. And some bigger 33s. Frost is big.
Yeah, this weight for me, one of the most interesting guys is Tyler Knox. He's 5-0 on the year. He has that win over Drake Ayala in the Stanford Iowa duel where he won 15-10. So he didn't just win. He put up a lot of points. And this is a great opportunity for him to show, hey, that wasn't a fluke. Like you said, when we were talking about 125, sometimes when you're singularly focused on one guy and one duel, you can get these results. When he's going to have, let's just say if he were to win the weight, he'd have to go through a guy like Evan Frost in the semis, a guy like Dylan Ragus and Connor McGonigal in the finals, maybe a Buzakis or somebody in the quarters. Like,
yeah. And he did beat Buzakis at CKLV last year, but Buzakis ended up placing and Knox did not. So
beat him soundly to 11-3 major last year.
You gotta string together those wins, show a little consistency, right? Much like Vince Robinson at the previous weight, Tyler Knox is the guy at 33 that we want to see. Are you the man? Right? We know you're good, but are you the man?
And Evan Frost and Tyler Knox had a 2-1 match last year at Cliff Keen.
Okay, so and Knox wrestled the Iowa State duel, but Frost did not, because Frost, I believe, some people said he was injured, but I think he was getting down to weight. Frost is an interesting situation. Iowa State's super interesting in totality, because Frost is big 33. And this will be a 2-day weigh-in. And so that'll be a tough one for him. I don't expect Frost. I do not think. I was concerned that Frost wasn't going to be able to make 33 this year. What I'm hearing is he will not be able to. It's probably not going to do it again next year. And Iowa State in general, I think you're gonna see weight movements out of those guys. People are going to come down, but not yet.
That's what my next question was. I saw some people tweeting yesterday about it. Timing, do we see it? And I agree. I don't think we see it until second semester.
That's when we're going to see it. Those guys are all going to drop. Echemendia, Pinero. They're going to drop. Yeah. So I'm going to go Ragusan. I'm going to go Ragusan over Frost. That's really chalk. And probably not sexy. But
this is one of – I argue this is probably the weakest, quote unquote, weakest weight. You only got 3 in the top 10. I don't think there's any other weight that has that few in the top 10. So
Yeah. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of sure things, right? The 3 seed is a freshman. So,
yeah. So, yeah, this is a tough one. I think you got to give the edge to Ragusin. Just has the experience over these guys. The weight is not an issue for him. I do think McGonigal could have a great showing. I think Knox, Frost, these guys are right there. Hopefully, I'd love to see Unger there. Sounds like he's got some lingering knee issues. Hopefully, he can work through those and get here. But yeah, I'll go Ragusin too. But should be fun to watch.
for sure, for me it's not even the top 2. It's how the rest of those guys shake out.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to learn from,
All right, let's move on to 41.
41, loaded weight, Jesse Mendez returning NCAA champ, Brock Hardy returning 3rd, Cale Happel, blood round, but previous NCAA All-American. Sergio Lemley, Josh Coderham, who I was talking about a bit ago, Navy, 25-8 last year, blood round guy. He had one wonky loss, but his other losses were Hardy, just super studs, right? He lost to Hardy a couple times, including at CKLV. His only loss this year is Hardy. He's a guy you need to know. Jordan Titus, West Virginia Tegan Jameson, who kind of seems out of place way down there as a 7 seed. I think most people would consider him in the 3-4 like Lemley Happel range, right?
Yeah.
But he did go 0-2 at NCAs, and so his ranking's a little low. Kai Oreen, AA at 33 last year. Chris Cannon. Vince Cornella, another one that's like kind of sounds like he has some injuries. So like that's three Cornell guys in a row, and Meyer Shapiro obviously is a injury concern. Latona wild card all the way down at the 12 seed. That's just wild that he's a 12 seed. That's just ridiculous. But yeah, Kion. Listen, Zach Redding is a problem. Mm-hmm. Zach Redding has a 14. That dude is good. And I said Etchemendy is probably coming down, but Redding's good. And another sneaky guy there, Emilio Izagari, he can upset anybody. He beat Hardy in a duel 2 years ago.
And this weight is funny because there's not like – this is the only way I didn't have somebody in my top 10 most interesting guys. But I am interested in just watching the weight. And like you said, you got Redding down there. You got Sam Latona. You got these guys that are low that on the surface seems low. And then you got guys like Kai Oreen who are just capable of beating anybody anytime and just a random, chaotic win. So I think it's going to be fun. Mm-hmm. I think this weight is Jesse Mendez's weight to lose all year. The guy is just one of the toughest wrestlers in the NCAA right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, now Happel beat Hardy twice last year. And on both occasions, Hardy kind of gave it away. Hardy's resume is vastly superior to anybody at this weight other than Mendez. But he does have an ability to like stub his toe at the end of a match or something, right? He's not bulletproof.
Yeah.
He's not upset proof. That being said, I'll take Mendez over Hardy. And I think everybody will take Mendez over Hardy, except, some people might see that 7-2 matchup and think Jameson could be Hardy. And he could for sure. But it's interesting that seed. I mean, some people might say Jameson's the third best guy here. and he's seeded 7. So, but yeah, I'll take Mendez over Hardy. I probably would take.
I'm going Mendez over Hardy.
Lemley's a really interesting cat too. I mean, Lemley beat Hardy last year. I don't know. So, but I'll take Mendez over Hardy, and I'll take Zach Redding as a surprise placer.
Lemley can win the thing. He can. I mean, he majored Real Woods last year. He's got some great wins. He beat Brock Hardy at Big Tens. But then he also lost to Real, Brock, Cal Happel, etc. at NCAAs. But Sergio Lemley, man, he's got some talent in him for sure.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to 49.
49, amazing weight class. I mean, you could fill a podium out with former NCAA All-Americans. Henson's in AA. Ty Waters, Ridge Lovett, Etchemendia, D'Amelio 2 years ago, Jaden Abbas 2 years ago. A lot of All-Americans there. Henson, obviously, you're returning national champ. Ridge, you're returning CKLV champ. Ridge beat Henson in last year's CKLV finals. Ty Waters beat Lovett at did he beat Lovett? He outplaced Lovett. Ridge's backside losses at NCAAs. One was Parco, and I forget who the other one was. Oh, Kasich, right? So Waters and Lovett didn't hit. But Waters outplaced Lovett. Etchemendia, AA last year at 41. Really interesting, dude. He is a wild card, right?
He's like that. He's that guy that you never really want to pick against because he's always right there. He has these exciting, tough overtime matches. He has these close. When some of these matches he loses, they're super close. Thinking about like the Iowa State duels last year against Real Woods this year.
Well, I mean, Ridge Lovett won this tournament. Ridge Lovett was NCAA runner-up, redshirt, CKLV champ, number 1 seed at NCAA's Big Ten champ, right?
Yep.
And he got beat, and Ridge got beat twice last year by Parco, who Etchemendia out-wrestled last week, 2 weeks ago, right?
Yep.
So if you want to say Ridge, if you're wondering where Etchemendia is at 149 on the pecking order, you should be convinced that he can go at this weight. Like 149 is not too big for him. But based on that metric, I mean, he wrestled Parco fine, maybe out wrestled him.
Yeah, and it is always exciting when you have a guy like Ridge Lovett. We talked about, I think, last week where he lost the NCAA finals to Yanni. He took some time off, redshirted, came back looking so good. And early last year, I kept saying, okay, but let's see where he is. Okay, but let's see where he is. And now I kind of feel like that again, where I'm like, okay, he looked great last year, and then he dropped those matches to Parco, fell on the ladder at NCAAs, finishing 6th. Where is he now this year? He's only had 3 matches. He did look good. He had a 4-0 win over Lachlan McNeil a couple weeks ago. But here, like you said, you have that gauntlet of he's not going to get by this weekend without seeing a Henson, a Waters, and Etchemendia. So where is he now? He's one of my most interesting guys to watch.
I think that now he did lose to Parco in a duel last year, and that was his only loss going into NCAAs. I just think, and it happens to people, the heartbreak of losing in the semis. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Parco, who beat him on the backside, or Kasich could beat him on the backside. But the heartbreak of losing in the semis, I don't think Ridge was quite right. I give him a little bit of a mulligan, and I'm gonna take him here. I'm gonna take Ridge over Henson. It was a close match at CKLV last year, won by Ridge. It was a nail biter at NCAs, won by Henson. I don't know. I'm gonna take Lovett. Who you got?
It's tough because, like you said, at NCAAs, Ridge lost 1-0 in the semis in a match that could have gone either way. And then the craziest thing was after that, Henson goes out in the finals in majors, dominates Austin Gomez. And, you know, he's one of those guys that, like, last year he had a loss to Jackson Arrington in the ACC championships.
Yeah. The week before.
You know, so it's like, I feel like I kind of have to go Henson here. He's,
you know, I really liked.
He's 100% bonus on this year, 6-0. It's like I understand that it was a close match between him and Lovett at NCAAs. Lovett also has to go through this gauntlet and wrestle some tough guys to even have a chance at Henson. I'm going Henson here.
No, I mean that's a good pick. I really liked Caleb Henson's. He tweeted something to the effect of, "Forget what happened last year. It means nothing." Mm-hmm. And I think you have to be in that mindset to repeat. I mean, I think you have to have those conversations with yourself, especially when there's killers. Right? I mean, Caleb Henson. If you're not head and shoulders Jordan Burroughs, Gable Stevenson above your competition, you really need to have a good mindset. And then I liked what Caleb Henson had to say. You have to think to yourself, forget last year. That was just last year.
Yep.
157. Now 157 is an odd weight, Justin. You said that 33 is probably the thinnest. And it is. 57 is sort of similar though, right? Especially if you take Meyer out, who Meyer was dinged up at Journeyman. He had some concussion issues last year at CKLV. It might have been the same thing at Journeyman. And I don't have clarity on if Meyer's going to go this weekend or not. So you take him out. And then you have, sophomore Antrell Taylor as your number one seed.
Yeah, it's one of those weights. It's not a lot. It's not very deep with depth. You just went through when you were talking about 49. You were saying how many returning All-Americans there were.
Yeah,
and then this is a completely different picture. And I do. Shapiro is one of my interesting storylines because it's like, okay, he's been out now. What's his game plan? What's his GP for the year? And, I had said on the show a couple weeks ago, I heard he might be redshirting. You can't redshirt in the Ivies. You can get a medical hardship exemption, which is what I think when I was talking to some people that it sounds like he could do. So I'm really interested. I don't think we see him this weekend. I really hope we do. I don't think we're going to see him this weekend.
I don't think we're going to see him either, which is really unfortunate. And I mean, hell, he's only in his second year of college. And you already have to worry about him going through a grueling tournament, right? You have to worry about his head, right? Which is it sucks, and it sucks. I mean, it sucks at any stage of your career, but when you're having concussion issues as a freshman, that stings. But so we'll go Antrell Taylor, Peyton Keller, Ryder Downey Jr., Ed Scott, Patty Gallagher, who to me is one of the more interesting guys at the weight. He had some good wins last year. It's interesting because class of 2021, right? Patty Gallagher was my number one prospect. Facundo was my number two. And neither of them have really, they flashed. They haven't been bad. They flashed some signs, but they haven't been as productive as your typical ones and twos.
Mm-hmm.
But Patty did show some signs last year before going down with injury. So, and again, we talked about it. Antrell Teller's your number one seed, but he's not a typical number one pedigree, right?
Right.
He's a sophomore that took 8th. So, while a lot of people say that Patty Gallagher has disappointed thus far to his career, if you're telling me that Patty Gallagher on Saturday, whatever, is on top of the podium, you can't be that surprised. Now, if he takes 6th, you can't be that surprised either. But if you're telling me Patty Gallagher CKLV champ, can't be that surprised. He could be there.
100%. I think Panero Johnson could too. Going right down next to the 7th seed with Panero Johnson.
Yeah, Panero Johnson. Again, I think he goes down to 49 a little later, but he's crazy. Panero Johnson is crazy. Trevor Chumley, Chase Saldate. Listen, Saldate is projected 8-9 seed. That dude took Levi Haynes to deep, deep waters last year. Mm-hmm. That's how good he is. Joey Blaze beat Peyton Robb at good wins last year. Teague Travis, another one with the Astros. He's been out of action for a while. Hopefully he's back here. Then you get down even. You know what? This is deep though. It is deep. Styles just took Antrell to overtime. Gregor Chalakian is a really wild, talented freshman. Jimmy Harrington is the one that beat Meyer at Journeyman.
Yeah, some storylines here for sure.
And now, this is probably the toughest to
pick.
To pick. Who are you taking? Who do you take it this way?
Man, it's so tough. Antrell Taylor, I had put in your CKLVC notes that here's a guy who, like you said, is likely going to be the 1 seed. And I'm looking through his wins, and he's 2-8 against top 11 guys in his career. He lost to Caliendo, Hamidi, Messenbring, Committee, O'Toole, Oljenik. He has a win over Hall and Amin, but it's like, man, he hasn't beaten the top guys. Can he do that this weekend? You look at other guys in here where, Peyton Keller, I think is sneaky good. He's ranked 5th, so I don't know if it's sneaky good, but you got guys even to have a 5, 6, 7 that I think all 3 of those guys, Ed Scott, Patty Gallagher, Panero Johnson, could turn around and win this thing, and I would not be surprised 1 iota. I don't know how to pick this weight. No clue.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of certainty. And now, the weird thing about Antrell is, 1, he was a freshman, so he's not going to have a whole lot of opportunities for wins. 2, he was up at 65 because P-Rob was at 57.
Yep.
So, you know who I'm going to take here? I'm going to take Ryder Downey.
It's not a bad pick.
Ryder Downey, freshman last year, just not highly regarded coming out of high school. He was, but he wasn't a big boarder, right? But I think, you get a redshirt year in, then your first year in action, and You have some monster wins. You just missed out on the podium. I think he's going to be. He's really funky. I think he's going to be really good in all positions. I'm going to go. I'm going to go Ryder Downey over. Oof.
Ryder will be fun to watch. Looking last year, he beat Paddy Gallagher 8-5. Then he lost to Ed Scott 4-1. He beat Chittum in the duel. He beat P-Rob in the duel. Ryder Downey's a stud. It's not a bad pick at all.
Yeah. I'm going to go Downey, and I don't even know who to. Maybe I'll go Ryder Downey over Paddy Gallagher. Although I didn't Scott beat Gallagher pretty good?
Didn't Scott?
I think he beat him pretty good.
4-2. 4-2 last year.
Oh, that was only 4. Okay. Give me Downey over Antrell.
Yeah, I don't hate that. Ed Scott is always the guy I just like instinctually want to pick. But he just had that loss to Jude Swisher. I don't hate your pick. I think that's probably something like that.
Yeah. Who knows? I could be totally wrong. That's a tough weight. It's a tough weight to handicap.
Yep. All right. 65 is going to be a whoo.
65's fun. It's led by Peyton Hall, ranked third in the country. Then Terrell Barraclaw, who has wins this year over Hunter Garvin. And who else did he beat? Amin.
Yep.
Who's also in the field at 6. So the return of Sammy. Everybody loves Sammy. Runner up twice, and now up 2 weights. It'll be MJ Gatan, is the word I'm hearing. Connor Uten for Iowa State may have an injury. Cam Amin at the 6 seed. Will Miller, very underrated Will Miller, at the 7. Brock Mantanona. Isn't it interesting that Brock Mantanona, I had to do a double take. When I was going through like box scores and I was doing Crystal Ball, and I had Bo Mantanona in there. And like I'm looking at rankings and Brock Mantanona is ranked. And I'm like, no, they got that wrong. It's Bo. So I go look up results, and it is in fact Brock. You would expect Bo was going to go. You know, he's had redshirted last year, but he's dinged up, I guess. And Brock, the true freshman,
Brock's another guy that Max Brignola beat earlier about a month ago.
Brignola beat Brock?
Yep.
At Clarion?
Clarion, 8-6.
Yeah, Brock's funky, dude. I like him a lot. Mayfield, Ruiz, who just beat Cam Amin. Bubba Wilson, Luka Wick, yada, yada, yada. You love Terrell Barraclaw. How much do you love Terrell Barraclaw?
I think he's number one, a guy that even Penn State haters or non-Penn State fans are really rooting for. You had a guy who was at Penn State for 4 or 5 years, just grinded it out as a backup, couldn't crack the lineup. Here he goes home to Utah, and now he's 8-0 on the year. He's got wins over Cam Amin, Bubba Wilson. He's looked great, and I put him in my most interesting guys to watch because it's like, man, you are 8-0. You are showing that you're that guy. And this weight is very, very winnable for him.
Yeah, and he has 2 wins already on the year over former AAs or returning AAs.
And my other most interesting, because I doubled up at this weight instead of picking one at 41, Sammy Sasso. Him up at 65 it's like, I did a double take when I'm looking at the seeds, and I'm like, wait a minute, Sasso's up at 65? You know, it's like, how is he going to look at 65? Obviously, he looked okay in his return. Shake off some dust, some rust, whatever you want to say. But
you got to wonder. It's hard to tell. I mean, Sammy at his peak is obviously finals, title contender type stuff. But with the injury he had and up 2 weights, you watch him wrestle at 65 and you're like, rust is expected, right? You should, if you look a little rusty after a long layoff like that, it's understandable. But is it rust, or is that what he is now? Right? Is he going to be limited in mobility, in reaction time, in speed because of this injury? Or is he going to be able to get back fully and be great, like his typical self? You don't know. And so I think, again, like Barraclaw, like 2 guys that the country's kind of rooting for. I don't know. I feel like this is sort of a cop-out, but I'm just going to remove Sammy from my picks because I don't know what he is. Right? I'm not going to.
Absolutely a cop-out, but you're allowed to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he wins this whole thing, which is a winnable weight for him. If he wins this weight, you're not surprised. If he looks rusty and isn't what he used to be, it's also not a surprise. So I'm going to remove Sam because I was just too many question marks. I'm actually going to take Hunter Garvin. I'm going to take Hunter Garvin over Peyton Hall.
Peyton Hall wrestled 7 matches in NCAAs last year. Wow. He lost to Anshel Taylor. He beat Julian Ramirez. He lost to Hunter Garvin. He beat Anshel Taylor again. I'm going Barraclaw. I'm going Barraclaw until proven otherwise. I think he looks great. You
love Barraclaw.
How can you not?
No, I know.
How can you not?
It would be great to see Utah Valley win a champ.
It would. All right, 74.
74. Interesting. K. Devos leads the seeds, returning NCAA 5. He beat Wolak in the 5-6 match. At NCAA's Dean Hamidi, up a weight, new places. He is at Oklahoma State now. Lorenzo Norman, the 4 seed after a win over Nelson Brands. Lenny Pinto down a weight from a blood round performance last year at 84. Carson Karchla, another guy back in the mix for Ohio State. Simon Ruiz, really looking forward to him. Del Barton, New Jersey guy. Freshman for Cornell. Brevin Casella, up a weight. Danny Wask had a wonky loss to start the year, I think, and then had a fantastic Navy Classic where he beat Pinto and somebody else that is very good. Matty Singleton, junior world teamer for NC State after a redshirt year. Jared Sima, blood round guy. Now, I mean, that's how deep this weight is. Jared Sima, a blood round guy at NCAAs, is the freaking 11 seed. Adam Kemp, not dead. He's still alive. He's still wrestling at NCAA Division I. He is old. Adam Kemp is old. Garrett Thompson, the 13. Listen, Sean Harmon's down there. Aiden Riggins down there. Brody Conley's shown really good signs last year. Had a bad end of the year, but he flashed a little bit last year as well. What do you make of Karchla? I mean, what do you make of him?
You know, he's one of my most interesting guys to watch. And again, it's not necessarily just his result, but it's also just the storyline of him. We talked earlier about guys developing and making jumps later in your career. And Karchla has been a guy who has had high expectations his whole career, but he's had injury after injury. He had a 7th round finish back a couple years ago, was off all year last year, medical red shirt. And we haven't seen him since.
Number 4 overall on the big board in 2019 was Karchla. Want to hear the first three?
Yeah.
Kirk Vliet, Colton Schultz, Andrew Alirez.
3 pretty good guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Karchla just has not been able to just string it together. So he's making his season debut, I believe, this weekend. And one thing to watch is, Rocco Welch. The plan is, I'm hearing, it's what they've been saying, he's going to redshirt this year, and then he'll slot in for Karchla next year. At some point, does that change? If Karchla isn't healthy or doesn't perform good, do they say the heck with it? Karchla is obviously a fifth-year senior. You don't want to just make a hasty lineup change. But at the same time, it's like the guy hasn't gone yet. Do we see, what does this weekend mean for Karchla?
Yeah, Ohio State is really, they got a lot of depth in there. To me, if you are planning right now to wrestle Karchla and redshirt Rocco, I mean, I guess it depends on what Rocco wants to do. You want to give your senior the opportunity to wrestle, right? Mm-hmm. If Rocco has a redshirt, but I don't know. To me, is like, no, you if you're going to redshirt Rocco, and if Karchla gets hurt, plug somebody else in there for this year.
Yeah,
get Rocco ready. Let Rocco run next year. That's what I would do.
I don't think you're wrong. Again, especially with Karchla being a fifth-year senior, he's out of red shirts. He had his redshirt freshman year in 2020. Then he missed all of 2021 with an injury, and he missed all of 2024 with an injury. So the guy's got nothing left as far as red shirts and ability to heal up and come back. This is his final shot. So, but I do think it'll be interesting to watch. I do think Welch is going to redshirt and is just going to, go with that plan. They said it, I think, on the Ohio State broadcast. I think it was when Sasso returned. I was watching it, and I believe they said that. So, yeah. My pick at this weight, though. By the way, I always love the Bear Claw pick. Kind of remind me of this. I always love when we do preview shows where Penn State's not competing, because it's one opportunity to not have to hear people whine that just because Penn State has the best kid at a weight and I pick them, that it's bias. I can pick Carter, and literally people will tell me it's a bias. Like, I'm so glad there's no Penn State guys to pick here, just because for once I'm going Hamity. I'm going Hamity at this weight.
You're not going Levi? I am too. And like I always say, there's a difference between could win and the pick. Like, the pick here is Hamidi. That's the pick. Can Devos do it? Sure. I'm super impressed with Wolak. If Wolak jumps levels this year, I'm not surprised. I'm super impressed with Wolak. I like the way he looks. Just eyeball test. But to me, the pick is Hamidi.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Hamidi, and now it's really interesting, that group, Norman, Pinto, Karchla, and I'd probably include Wask because he just beat Pinto. So if Hamidi beats Wolak, to me, I would take Hamidi over Wolak if they weren't on the same side. I'll take Hamidi over Debos.
Okay. All right, let's go to 184.
No, you got to pick who's in the finals. Hamidi over who?
Devos probably.
Yeah.
Chalk, but I just don't.
Yeah. 184 national finals match possibility rematch. Keckeisen, your 1, and a returning national champ. Plot, your 2, and a returning finalist. Bennett Berge, All-American. Silas Allred, blood round guy at 97, now down at 84. Dylan Fishback, blood round guy. Bachman, the 6th seed. Ryder Rogotsky, who's wild, comes in at number 7. TJ Stewart, one of our most interesting men.
We both picked him. Yep.
We both picked him. He is your 8th seed despite placing 7th at NCAAs because he's 0-2 on the year. Jaden Bullock is your 9. Will Ebert, who has a win this year over Ed Ruth, although a lot of people have a win over Ed Ruth this year. He's your 10.
Yeah. Not the best player for Edmund Ruth.
No, and he's on my fantasy team, and I love him, but rough start for Ed Ruth, rough start for TJ Stewart. But I've said on a couple occasions, TJ might take some time to. He's one of those guys. He has to get in. He has to get in shape. Maybe he has to get back in the flow of things. So if they get him back on track, I wouldn't be surprised. How do you handicap this one, Justin?
Man, this is the tough one. This to me is Parker's weight to lose. Obviously, Parker's a returning national champ. His only blemish since winning was a loss to Carter, which you can't fault him for. I am curious at Dustin Plott. His new coaching staff has him looking good this year, 4-0. This weight to me is more the question marks. What does Ryder Rogotsky look like? TJ Stewart, can he bounce back?
I mean, the story here, right? The narrative here for everybody, generally speaking, is the pick is Keckeisen over Plott, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot to learn thereafter.
And I'll tell you what, I'm curious. Bennett Berge just took back-to-back losses. He lost to Parker in the duel, 8-3, and he just lost to Mac McKinley in OT in the duel yesterday. So, we talk about bounce back for TJ Stewart, bounce back for Bennett Berge. What can he do this weekend to bounce back from a couple of losses?
Yeah. I think Berge's fine. Overall, what does that mean for him this weekend? Right. I mean, and the question for, Silas Allred is a guy that he's a Big Ten champ. He beat Max Dean, who was an NCAA champ. But he's been blood round. He makes it down to 84. Is he a player at this weight? I mean, can he go with a Plott? Can he go with a Berge? Can he, so Silas Allred is a nice wrinkle. And this is 100%. His first big test.
And for Berge, too, Berge's not stocked down after losing to number 1 Parker, and I think McKinley is like 9th or 10th. So it's 2 top 10 guys he wrestled back-to-back, but it's still a bounce-back opportunity. Because this weight, on paper, it looks closer to 133, but you do have 4 of the top 5 in the country to start it off.
Yeah.
And then
the only one you're missing is
Carter. And then you do have a gap from, there's no guy from 6th ranked to 12th. But then you have 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 19. So you kind of have 2 big tiers here where you have you have all these guys like Ryder, like TJ Stewart that are down there. Can they bounce back? So it's definitely going to be an interesting way. I think obviously Parker over Plott is the pick. It's what can some of these guys do to get some big wins?
I the pick is Keckeisen over Plott, but you really have your eyes on what is Silas at 184, and can TJ Stewart rebound?
Yep.
To me, those are the stories. 84. 197, the most interesting man in America, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, also, I had to look because I made these screenshots, and it's nice because I don't have to worry about typos. I make more typos than anybody on planet Earth. I type, not exaggerating, like probably 200 words a minute, and I don't fix typos. I just, if there's a typo, it's whatever. So I say all that because when I was making these screenshots to put these on screen to bless our listeners, you had AJ1 parentheses 1867. So
yeah, that's the year he won the NCAA.
So my first thought was it was a weight typo, and then I realized, oh no, this is what Willie's doing.
Yeah. I mean, listen, he's been out of action. He only had he's only had what, 6 matches in 2 years, and not a lot of significant ones, right? I mean, his most significant match in 2 years is an overtime match with Zach Glazier, who is in this field.
Yeah.
So now somebody had reached out to me. You know, I get a lot of people reaching out to me about this or that, and somebody from the Bakersfield is like a high school coach in the Bakersfield area.
Mm-hmm.
Said that he heard, and he's not sure if it's true, but he heard that AJ had a pec injury. So that's why I have an asterisk by him.
Which would line up with everything that you're seeing. You know, we had mentioned a couple weeks ago that he was off in New Jersey doing a clinic instead of at their home open tournament.
Yeah.
One of the biggest tall tales for me is AJ is a gamer. Some love him, some hate him, but he's very good at getting people to talk about him. And when you have a tournament like the CKLV coming up, and you're not saying anything about it as your AJ Ferrari, that makes me inch closer to, I don't think we're seeing him. You know, he's posting about surprising his family on Thanksgiving. And again, he could be there, but this is the big, if we don't see.
You know what? Yeah, that's a good point. Nothing would surprise me, though. I mean, he must have a lot of sky miles. He flies a lot. He's in Jersey. He's in Texas. In California. But you are right. I didn't think about that angle. He chirps. He chirps when, you say chirp, but he markets himself when he's going to wrestle Nick Stemmet, right?
Yep.
So if you market yourself when you're going to wrestle Nick Stemmet, if you push the envelope and challenge Carter Starachi, you're probably going to say,
now,
665 deadlift, baby, going to Vegas.
Now, I would say 2 things. One is that I do think Stemmet started it with AJ, and AJ kind of responded the way he did. But you do have no shortage of storylines here that, you know, even him and Zach Glazier, after what happened at the Soldier Salute last year, you know, so it's like, I don't think we see him. I'm always afraid to text these guys and ask them if they're going, because what they do is they'll either say, yeah, I'm going, but I want to keep it low key, or no, I'm not going, but don't say anything. So I almost don't knowing, because then it's like you're sworn to secrecy, and I want to respect these kids. If they ask me something, like, sure, I'm not going to say it or whatever, but I almost don't even bother.
I like knowing, but I don't do it. Sometimes, you know, people say, well, how come you don't know? Or did you try to find out? And I say no. And they say, well, you're a journalist. Why don't you try to find out? And it's like, I don't want to put the kid in that situation. I don't even want, you know, I'd rather ask the coach, who is going to say no comment.
Yeah. They're not going to tell you anyways.
In that situation.
I do, and I'll beat this drum until I'm blue in the face. I have so much love and respect for Kevin Dresser because of his transparency. He'll start a week off and say, this is who's going, this is who's not. He's got a banged up foot. We're healing him. We're resting him because he's old, whatever. So I do hope we see that early this week. Because I just, my gut says if AJ was going to Vegas, there's no shortage of content he could be creating around it, and he is a marketer. And AJ, he's only going to see Trey Munoz and Steven Little this year before the postseason. We're not going to see AJ in big matches until the postseason, unless he comes this weekend. Again, Little and Munoz are both very good, and he'll they're on the schedule. Whether or not they happen, I don't know, but those are duels that are on the schedule for February. But, man, it's really, if we don't get to see those for 3 more months, that'd be a bummer.
Yeah, it would be a bummer. It would be a bummer if he wasn't here. But I mean, just for everything. Number one, because we really want to know where AJ is right now in his return. Is he an overtime guy with Zach Glazer, or was that a one match thing? And he is the guy at 197. And this will be a great test because not only is there Jacob Cardenas to measure yourself against, there's also that thing where you have to go through bing, bing, boom. You have to beat a few guys, right? You have to beat several guys, including your boy. It's not your boy. It's Bashada's boy, Serber. Bashada loves Serber.
Serber looks tough, man.
And he's a real interesting cat. Now, if AJ is in the field, there's a projected Serber Cardenas match. If AJ's not in the field, Serber would be the 6 with Munoz, who we just beat.
Yep. Yeah, this weight is, I feel like it's such a 125 without Figs isn't as big of a question mark as 97 without Ferrari, I feel like, because there's so many deep guys. Again, seeing potentially 9 of the top 10 at 125. Here again, you only have 4 of the top 10.
And Figs did it last year, right? Figs did it last year, so we know he's within. We know he's a thing at 125. Now, I mean, we know Ferrari's a thing at 97, but is he the guy? So
yeah. And I want to see him. It's been a long time since he's gone against the best. Where does he stack up against Glazer, Munoz, Serber, Ferrari? Like, sign me up for that.
Yeah, and beyond Ferrari and Cardenas and Serber, there's some really interesting guys. Geog's interesting. If it's Sonny Sasso, he's really interesting, freshman. Volker's a guy I think could make a jump. Round of 16 last year. Who did he just beat? He just beat Sinclair, right? Aiden Sinclair. Christian Carroll. Christian Carroll's way down there at 10, because he's a freshman.
He's one guy, too, that I'm really, he got bodied by Buchanan in the duel, got majored 10-0. But it's only his first couple of times down at 97. We mentioned it. He was he weighed 257 a year ago at this time. So,
unreal.
Does it take a couple matches to get him into rhythm at 197? I'm really keen on what Carroll does this weekend.
Yeah, and it's just too early to go out on a limb and pick him to place high. But if he did, right, he's a guy with win over Jacob Warner, albeit in freestyle. But if Carroll places high, if he upsets some guys, it wouldn't be a surprise, but you got to see it.
How about Cam McDaniel? Opportunity to get some big matches.
Yeah. That's another freshman. There's a lot of freshmen. A lot of interesting freshmen. Christian Carroll, Mikey Delegata, Cam McDaniel. Really, 197 is awesome. There's so many different buckets of guys. If AJ's there, who's your pick?
AJ. If AJ's healthy enough to go and he goes, I think he's the favorite. while there's a lot of interesting guys here, there's not a lot of guys that I think are head and shoulders above AJ where they're the clear favorite. You know, Munoz has already taken a couple losses to Buchanan, to Serber. Zach Glazier, AJ beat him last year or whenever it was, the Soldier Salute. Cardenas, you know, maybe Cardenas, but if AJ's there,
I'm going to take Cardenas over Ferrari.
Okay.
And if under the theory that Jacob Cardenas is really freaking good, probably better than people give him credit for.
Cardenas had a lot of top 10 losses last year.
Yeah. I mean, he only loses studs, and
yeah, he didn't lose to anybody last year ranked outside the top 10. He lost to Buchanan, right. Elam, Beard, Louis D. Perez, Beard again, Tanner Sloan, Trent Hidley.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna take Cardenas over Ferrari under this theory. Jacob Cardenas really good, plus pretty much optimized, right? I mean, he is the best version of himself or close to it. AJ Ferrari, really freaking good, and he's a question mark. Where is he? Is he the best version of himself right now? Is he fully healthy? Is he fully training? I mean, we always trains in the gym, but in his wrestling. And overtime match with Glazier. I'm going to take Cardenas over that, knowing full well that an optimized AJ Ferrari is the pit. It is.
That's fair. I will say, right? Too, I will also say that it's not just the rumors of him having an injury. It's also him not wrestling at the Roadrunner Open, their tournament. It's the fact that, the last time we saw him was already over a month ago. It was November 1st. So,
was it really? Wow.
Yeah, the Stanford duel is November 1st. It was one of the first duels of the season.
If AJ is out,
Cardenas is my pick.
Over who? Serber?
Yeah. But let's see, if they'd be the one they wouldn't be on the same side, right?
No.
If they're the one.
Serber would be the 6. He'd have to go through Munoz and Glazier.
I think it can be both of them. Yeah, I like Jacob over Serber.
Yeah.
All right.
Heavyweight's
very interesting.
You got Wyatt Hendrickson as the 1 seed. Then you got younger Bastida as the 2 seed. Now, Bastida beat Hendrickson last year, correct? Did Bastida beat him last year? I think.
Bastida beat him 10-7 in the Big 12 finals.
That's right. But Bastida, I don't think he's healthy. I don't think he's going to wrestle. So then you'd have Schultz, Trumbull as the 2-3, Feldman, Mullen as the 4-5. Corey Day from Binghamton, it was 2-2 at NCAA is the 7. And on down, pretty deep way, especially for heavyweight. I mean, pre-tournament, you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. And talented freshman Jimmy Mullen, who just had an overtime loss to All-American Yaroslav Kuski. If Younger's in, who's your pick? What's your pick?
Wyatt. Wyatt's my pick no matter what. I think the only 2 people who could beat Wyatt this year are Gable and Kirk. I think those 1, 2, 3 rankings are going to hold.
Same.
I don't think Younger's going to go. I think he's not healthy. Schultz, it's very hard to ever pick Schultz to be anything but 4, 5, 6 at this point. Does he have the talent? Absolutely. Is it hard to pick him to place outside of 4, 5, 6? Yes. One of my most interesting guys to watch here was Feldman. So Feldman beat Schultz in NCAAs. Then he got majored by Wyatt. I'm really curious of where Feldman at. He was 5th last year at NCAAs as a freshman. He's 5-0 on the year. Really, really keen to see what Feldman does this weekend.
I feel like Feldman has the country, the fans, a little bit buffaloed. Like I think they saw what he did at NCAAs last year, and are like, man, he's the next big thing, right? When Kirk graduates, when Hendrickson graduates, Feldman is the next big thing. And then they saw him against Gadiali, and I think they were like, man, what's wrong with Feldman? He doesn't look right. Maybe he's not who we thought we were. You know, it's sort of like the TJ Stewart thing. I mean, when I saw TJ Stewart at NCAAs, I was like, this dude's going to be problems. This dude's going to be a problem for everybody. And now he's just not that right now. And not that a singular loss to Tay Gadiali changes everybody's opinion, but it's the way he looked. He didn't look right. And so I think
yeah, I said he's 5-0 on the year.
There's a lot of eyes on Feldman.
He's technically
a lot of eyes on Feldman.
Yeah, he's technically 5-1. People that are going to tell me. So yeah, I'm. There's a lot that I think Feldman can do to look good this weekend. There's a lot of guys that are there that when you have those guys, Wyatt, Younger, Colton, Trumbull, he's going to see at least one of those guys, at least one. And I think he looked great last year. I think he's going to AA again this year. So, yeah, I'm
interested. I'm under the assumption that Younger's out. So I'm taking Hendrickson next topic. But to me, what I really want to see is I want to see Feldman's rebound, how he looks this weekend, and I want to see Jimmy Mullen. You had your litmus test with him with Slavakuski. He looked really good, came up short in OT. But what does he look like against Feldman, against Trumbull, against Schultz, even against a guy like Corey Day? So to me, it's Hendrickson next topic, but also I'm looking at Feldman and Mullen to see how they do.
Yeah. Do you know that for as much marketing and computer background I've been doing this my whole life on computers. I was building WWF News and Rumors websites back in 1999. I still don't know how to make a spreadsheet like you did on the calculations thing. I still don't know how to do anything like that. Never have.
I don't know how to do it neither. My guy, Joe Caprino from Indiana Matt, and he does he helps Intermat quite a bit on the back end because I don't know nothing about running a website technically. I know the content end, but I don't know the coding at all. Yeah. But he built it for me. He built the team scores, and it has Nebraska narrowly ahead of Okie State. Actually, let me go.
And nobody with 2 champs, which is interesting.
Yeah, now these are totally based off projected seeds. The points totals, and I didn't put this on Masscout, so it's not public yet. It's not up yet because Joe just built this for me yesterday. But here's the team scores based off projected seeds, and I was wrong. Nebraska's not in first. Ohio State's in first. 110 to Nebraska's 101. Okie State 98. Virginia Tech 89. Iowa State 83. South Dakota State 77. Northern Iowa 74. Michigan 69. Stanford up there with 56. You know who's down is NC State is way down there with
Yeah.
51, and Cornell's way down there. But Cornell's way down there because I didn't fix this yet. Anything that has an asterisk in it was not pulled.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that's a smart thing to do, though.
Because I really, truly do not believe Meyer will wrestle. Now, I hope he does. But I think Cornell's placement at CKLV is going to be sort of their team placement is going to be inconsequential. I don't think you're going to look back at this and say, well, Cornell only plays ninth, and
no,
so
I
they're
think
not. They're going to be missing some pieces.
With all these guys out, yeah, it's just not going to be an accurate representation.
Right, and remember, you don't have Julian Ramirez and you don't have Chris Foca because they can't wrestle till second semester. So it's just throw out Cornell's results because it's their team results because it's not accurate. I mean, it's not a true reflection. Nebraska every year at Cliff King is like, I think the fans are like, yeah, Nebraska, they're cute. They'll be third or second. And they win it almost every year, with the exception of last year when they were edged, I think, by Iowa State.
Let's run through the schedule real quick just to make it easier for people.
Go ahead.
So the schedule.
Well, I want to get your team champs. I want to know who you're picking as team champs.
I like Ohio State. Seeing that, I mean, if these are based on seeds, and you got 9 places for Ohio State, only 6 for Nebraska, 7 for Okie State, with Nebraska not having a single champ. Now, that's questionable on the simple thing of, I feel like it should be 0/1 for champs because Nebraska having Ridge Lovett as almost a shoe-in finalist.
Yeah.
And so I think you got to give the edge to Ohio State. I think Nebraska's right there because literally Ridge Lovett is a shoe-in finalist, I think. And Oklahoma State, I think all year, I think we're going to see them performing above expectations. That's just a gut.
Yeah.
So it is interesting that potentially no school having 2 champs, that's not going to happen. Somebody's going to get 2 champs, I think.
It's wonky because, like, let's say you take out Meyer, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say you take out Meyer, then Antrell becomes the 1. And he is probably the shakiest 1 seed in the field. Right?
If any team had 2 champs, who would you take? Nebraska?
Yes.
Because you got Caleb Smith, Brock Hardy, Ridge Lovett, all in the top 3.
That's the thing. I don't know if I'd take Nebraska with more.
Antrell Taylor being the 2 seed?
Yeah, but if you take Meyer out, he's the 1.
Yeah.
I don't know if Nebraska has a whole lot of champs, but I think they have the best shot for a whole lot of finalists. The problem with Ohio State is you have a lot of question marks with how good is Sammy?
Yeah.
Right? How good is Karchla? Now, on the plus side, I mean, they're getting points for 5 and 7 seeds when they might not be totally healthy. I don't know. Is that too high? Is that too low? I think Macron at 25 in a weight that has a ton of parity. I think Macron could has an opportunity to jump. I don't know. I'm gonna go Nebraska. I'm gonna go Nebraska, Okie State, Ohio State. I'm gonna move Ohio State from 1st to 3rd.
So you got Ohio State underperforming, Oklahoma State overperforming. Not overperforming, but exceeding expectation.
Yes, versus seeds. And that's mainly because That's mainly because I don't know what Karchla is. I don't know what Sammy is. And I think Wyatt Hendrickson is a sure thing with a lot of bonus. Right? I think Spratley's a 5 seed that could win it.
So let me ask you this. You think Nebraska has the best chance of 2 champs? But I think, in hindsight, I think you picked Oklahoma State to have 2. Hamidi and Hendrickson.
I don't know. Hendrickson who?
Hendrickson and Dean Hamidi. Hamidi.
Right. That's right. There's another reason. No, I don't think Nebraska has the best shot to have 2.
Comment below who has the best chance to have 2 champs at the CKLV.
Yeah. I mean,
all right, let's go run through the schedule real quick.
I think Nebraska has the best chance to have the most finalists, put it that way.
That wasn't the question specifically, because that's an easy one. All right, schedule. Friday at noon Eastern starts round 1, and then at 9 p.m. Eastern, you have the quarterfinals. Saturday, semifinals at 1 p.m. Eastern, and the finals and third place matches at 6 p.m. Eastern. So on Flow Wrestling, should be good. Yeah, I'm excited. It's hopefully throughout this week we get some answers as far as who's going.
Yeah.
AJ, if you're listening to this, or AJ's family is listening to this, because a lot of wrestlers' families like listening to us to see what we think or say about their kid, their brothers. So if the Ferrari family is listening, can you put a bug in AJ's ear to let us know publicly one way or another?
Yeah, tell him to tweet some stuff.
Yeah. Like here. Okay, if he's not going to Vegas, tweet out or Instagram that everybody's lucky they can live another day. If he is going, do some kind of like 665 on a slot machine. Do something. There's 2 content ideas.
Blink twice.
Right.
Also, the team scores are not up on the projected seeds yet. I will put them up, and I will adjust them. I will adjust both the seeds and the projected team totals as we get information.
All right, sounds good. All right, that's today's show. We're gonna try to also do a crystal ball show. In our group chat, we've been arguing back and forth about crystal ball for the past week. It is done, so it just needs to go.
It's done.
It needs to be posted, and the discussions and the bias and everything else needs to be discussed.
Yeah, it's going to be great to get everybody's take, but it's also, when you're having mini NCAAs 2 days after I'm putting it up, it's sure to make me look silly because
I know
it'll be.
We could always wait until just after CKLV to do it as well.
No, it's
you
great
already
to get
did
a
it.
look.
Yeah,
it's great to get a look, and I'm fine with where I'm right, where I'm wrong. No pressure, no diamonds.
No pressure, no diamonds. Let that be a lesson for all the wrestlers competing this weekend at the CKLV. All right, that's today's show. Thanks, guys. All right, we're back for the after show real quick because as we always hit finish recording and then we just keep discussing, and sometimes we give even more unfiltered takes. But while we were doing the after show conversation, we realized Willie did pick 2 champs from you and I in Ryder Downey and Parker Keckheisen.
Yeah, I think that's the only team I picked. So,
no, and Oklahoma State. You picked 2 at Oklahoma State.
Yeah. But when you're having the conversations, right, you're like Ohio State, Oklahoma State, Nebraska, and little did we realize I did, in fact, pick Ryder Downey and Parker Keckheisen. So there's 2 champs for them.
Yeah.
And you know who I didn't? Also, keep an eye on Colin Realbuto. He could be a wild card.
Wild card, Realbuto. All right, that's the after show. Thanks for tuning in twice. See you guys. All right.
And the beat goes on.